Now, welcome to our today's science lesson, that is standard 8. Now, during our last lesson, we discussed about animals, and we discussed on the ways we can feed the animals, the methods that are used for grazing of the animals, and we identified different methods of grazing. We discussed both rotational grazing, and also we discussed what we call herding, and also we discussed tethering. Now, all those methods are carried out so that maybe to prevent some diseases and also to prevent parasites. Now, today we are going to discuss about now livestock parasites. Now, these livestock parasites, now when you talk about a parasite, we have to identify the specific meaning of this, what we call a parasite. Now, when we talk about a parasite, these are just animals that get food from other animals. They only depend on other animals specifically for food, and also they can also depend to other animals for shelter or habitat. Now, if any animal depends on other animal specifically for food, but that animal does not gain anything from that animal that is feeding on it, it's what we call a parasite. Now, what is the name given to that animal that is now being dependent on for food? This animal is what we call a host. So a host is just an animal that is dependent on, either if it's a tick, depending on a cow for blood, so we call a tick as a parasite, but now a cow is what we call a host. Now, after discussing the definition of a parasite and a host, now we have also to distinguish and get the classification of these parasites. Because all parasites, we have those that are called internal parasite, and also we have those that we call external parasite. Now, when do we say a parasite is an external parasite? And when do we say a parasite is an internal parasite? Straight away, we are going to discuss about external parasite. Now, when you talk about an external parasite, from just the term external, it means this one is found on the body, that's specifically on the surfaces of the animal. So that one means it is on the body of that animal. If it is a tick, it is on the body of that animal, hence the name external parasite. Now, examples of this external parasite, number one, we are going to discuss each and its characteristics and the animal that it depends on. For example, if we start with here ticks, the host of the tick is number one, we have those cattle, we have sheep and goats. So if somebody asks you to give examples of hosts of ticks, we give an example of a cattle, sheep and goat. Now, what is the effects of these ticks? When you talk about a tick, it sucks blood from that animal. If a tick sucks blood from a cattle, it means it will cause what we call anemia. And when we are going to discuss about anemia, this anemia is just the low amount of blood in the body. If we have a low amount of blood, it will have a disease what we call anemia. Number two, the effect of these ticks, it causes what we call irritation. Irritation is where now the animal is not comfortable. It's discomfort. Every time it keep on changing the positions, and also it's not comfortable on its own, either feeding and also carrying out its own activities. Now also, these ticks can transmit diseases. How does the transmission of diseases occur? When these ticks suck blood of an animal, let's say it sucks blood from a sheep, and thereafter it moves to another animal, either it moves to a cow. If it moves to a cow, it means if this sheep had a certain disease, it means it will suck the blood of a sheep, then it will deposit that blood to a cattle, hence causing that transmission of the disease. Number two type of external parasite, we talk about mites. Now, the host of a mites is the cattle, sheep, goat, pig, horses. We have a camel and poultry, and lastly we have what we call rabbits. So you must understand and keep aware of every parasite and its host. If somebody asks you in an examination, what is the host of a tick, you have to get that question directly and answer it. What is the effects of these mites? The effects, number one, as we have said, we have what we call irritation, that is discomfort. Then we have damage to the wool of a sheep. The damage, it means if it feeds on the wool of the sheep, and when we were discussing about sheep, we said it gives us a wool, and this wool is used for manufacture of clothes and different things. Now, if it damages that wool, it means it causes the effect to that sheep. Number three, we talk about transmission of viral diseases. Viral diseases, it means if it has fed on a sheep or a cattle, then it moves to a pig, it means it have transmitted that viral disease from a cattle to a pig or to a horse or even to poultry. Now, the next thing it causes, the mites, it causes sheep scabby. Sheep scabby, this is just after irritation, we have that parts that are destroyed. When those parts are destroyed, it means it will leave a certain scar. That scar is what we call about a sheep scab. Now, the third example of external parasite is what we call now the fleas. The fleas has the following hosts. Number one, we have cattle, we have sheep, we have goats, we have pigs, we have poultry, and also we have what we call rabbits. And generally, when we talk about poultry, we give out examples of poultry. What are the effects of these fleas? Number one, they suck blood from the host. They may suck blood from cattle, sheep, or any other host. Then also, they cause irritation. Then they cause scabby patches. Those one I've already discussed them. Then it causes a bare skin. What do we say by a bare skin? If it is an animal, for example, it is a cattle, then the fleas feed on the hairs on the skin of the animal. It means it will leave that skin without any hair. If it feeds on a goat, it means it will eat all the hairs or the wool on the sheep, so leaving the skin without any covering. That means it leaves the skin of the animal bare. The fourth example of this external parasite is what we call the lice. Now, the lice have the following host. Number one, it has a cattle as the host, it has a sheep, pigs, and also it has what we call horses. And lastly, it has poultry. What are the effects? The effects of these lice, number one, they chew the skin. When they chew the skin, they cause irritation. And when they are chewing the skin and causing irritation, remember, they are also feeding on the blood, hence causing what we call anemia. And now, lastly, it causes the scabby patches. Those are just the patches that are left on the skin of the specific host. Now, the last example of this external parasite is what we call a tsetse. Now, this tsetse is very dangerous when it comes to parasites, external parasites. It is very dangerous to animal. Now, these ones, it affects generally all domestic animal. And we discussed examples of domestic animal, where we discussed cattle, sheep, we have goats, we have horses, we have even goats and other examples, poultry and others. Now, all domestic animals, they are affected by what we call tsetse. We are going to discuss the more effects of this tsetse as we move forward, but now you have to understand that the first effects that we have to get is what we call the muscular twitching. What is the muscular twitching? It causes the weakness in the muscles. So it causes either the muscles to be very weak, hence causing what we call the muscular twitching. It causes what we call also anemia. We have also loss of appetite. Then also it causes fever, watery eyes, dry guts, and have what we call restlessness and swollen lymph. Now, when you talk about anemia, I've already discussed it. Loss of appetite. I said it's very dangerous to animal, and if it affects any animal, we have to rush with a very fast medication to be carried out. Now, it causes what we call loss of appetite. The animal will not have that appetite, normal appetite of eating or feeding on grasses. Also fever. There is very high temperature increase, and also we have watery eyes. When you look at the eyes of the animal, it has changed. When the animal has either dry eyes, then you get that the animal has started having running eyes. Running eyes are also called watery eyes. We have dry guts. The guts of the skin of the animal, it's very dry, and when you observe the hairs on the skin, they are not that smooth. So we call it dry. And then we have also restlessness. You get the animal is not comfortable where it is. It keeps on running from one place to another because of this, the presence of tsetse. Then we have also swollen lymph. Swollen lymphs are of the presence of the muscular twitching. When we have the muscular twitching, it causes lastly what we call the swollen lymph. Now, this is all about external parasite. We move to internal parasites, and I already said external parasites are they live on the body of the animal. Now, when we move to what we call internal parasites from the term internal, it means they live in the body of the hosts. So they are found inside the body of the host. What are the examples of these internal parasites? Number one, we talk about the lungworm. Lungworm, the parts that are found in the body of the host, when you want to get lungworm, we will get them in the lungs, brain, and also in the stomach. These are the parts that are affected by the lungworm. Then also, what are the hosts of this lungworm? We have the hosts are cattle, sheep, goats, and also we have what we call pigs. These are the hosts of the lungworm, and these are the parts that are affected by this lungworm. The second example of internal parasite, we have what we call tapeworm. And during our discussion, during classification, I gave characteristics of a tapeworm. Now, what is the parts that are affected by this tapeworm? Number one, we have what we have liver. We have small intestine. So tapeworm has only two parts mainly that are affected by this tapeworm, that is liver and small intestine. What are the hosts? The host of a tapeworm is a cattle, sheep, goat, and pigs. Then number third, on the internal parasite, we have what we call the liver fluke. The parts that are affected by the liver fluke, we have the liver, we have lungs. Then also, what are the hosts? The hosts are the cattle, sheep, goats, and pigs. So you must understand the internal parasite, the parts that are affected, and also get to understand the specific hosts of those parasites. The last example, the second last example of this internal parasite is what we call the roundworm. Now the roundworms are found in the following areas. Number one, they are found in the liver, that affects the lungs, and also affect the small intestine of these hosts. The hosts include, we have what we call the fish, we have the fish and poultry. That is the host of the roundworm. Now, we have the last example of internal parasite. The last example is what we call the hookworm. The hookworm affects what we call the small intestine, and the specific host is the sheep and goats. So generally, you have to understand the parts that are affected with the internal parasite, and also get to understand the specific hosts of these parasites. Now, after understanding both external and internal parasite and the examples and the effects, now we move to now what is the general effects of both parasites. These parasites have general effects to the livestock. The first example or the first effects is poor health. When we talk about poor health, what causes poor health? We say that these parasites, they cause diseases. For example, anemia or nagana of sesefly, or sleeping sickness of sesefly. We have nagana and sleeping sickness that is caused by sesefly. Now, the poor health is caused by the presence of diseases. When the animal is affected by different diseases, it means the body immunity, it is seriously affected. When the body immunity is affected, it means this animal weakens the body, hence becoming very weak and leading to poor health. The second effects of these parasites is that now they cause what we call the poor quality. When we talk about poor quality, here we talk generally of the products of these animals. If the animal, for example, we talk about sheep, the wool. When we're talking about the wool of the sheep, the effects, this animal, for example, when we talk about fleas, we say they feed on the wool. Now, if they feed on the wool, it means it reduces the quality. That's the product, the goodness of that wool, it's affected, hence causing what we call the poor quality of the products. Number three, effects, we talk about anemia. I've already discussed anemia as a disease, which one is, it is caused just by the presence or the low amount of blood in the body system. Number four, we talk about irritation. This one I've already said it, it's about the discomfort of the animal that leads to animal running from one area to another. And the best example of disease that causes this irritation is what we call nagana and this sleeping sickness. These ones are caused by what we call the sesefly of our external parasite, that is a sesefly. Now, the third or the fifth effect is low quantity. We have to differentiate between low quality and low quantity. When you talk about low quality, is the goodness of the products. That's the better and the best way of this product is what we call the quality. But when you talk about the quantity, is the amount. If we get, for example, 20 kg of wool per a sheep, but now we get that the sheep has been affected by either ticks, mites, and also fleas. It means it has to reduce this maybe up to 10 kg of these wools. Now this one has led to the reduction of the products, meaning there is a low quantity of the products. Then also we have transmission of diseases. Transmission of diseases, I've already discussed it, where best example was ticks, where it sucks blood of one animal and move to another one, and also causing that transmission of diseases. Then lastly, we talk about economic loss. When we talk about economic loss, and by the way, the external parasite or internal parasite affects specifically the livestock. When talk about economic loss, for example, you have invested in cattle or you have invested in sheep, but now at the end of the day, you get that this animal have been affected by tsetse flies. Now, if these animals die, this means you have lost a lot of income, and also you have lost a lot of money. This means generally you have lost a lot of economy. If we depend on these livestock, that means you have lost a lot of economy. That's the amount of money that you get from those animals. The second last part that we are going to discuss is about the control of these livestock diseases. Now, if we have talked about the example, external and internal, we have talked about the effects, the general effects of these parasites. Now we have to talk about now how can we now control, because everything we have to have ways that we can control them. Number one, we have what we call dipping. When do we talk about dipping? Dipping, this one we use what we call a chemical that is called a acaricide. This acaricide is put in what we call a dip. We have, for example, this is a dip. Now in a dip, we have what we call the entry. The entry is where this animal enters the dip, but now we have also what we call the exit. And inside here, we have a chemical, and this chemical I've already said is what we call a acaricide. Now we have the entry and the exit of this animal. And on the top of this, we have what we call the sprayers. These sprayers, they spray the chemical on the top of the animal, but now the chemical that is inside this dip is now what washes the animal's body, hence causing what we call, carrying out what we call the control of external parasite. So dipping mainly is used for control of external parasite. Now, when we move to another example of control of these livestock parasites, we have what we call deworming. Now, on deworming, it's just administering or giving oral medicines to this animal. We administer or give oral medicine to this animal. There are different ways that we can give this medicine. Number one, we can carry out what we call drenching. Now, when you use drenching, this one is used for giving out what we call the liquid medicine. Now, when you give liquid medicine one to the animal is what we call drenching. Now, what are the instruments that are used for carrying out drenching or giving out liquid medicine are what we call now the drenching gun. We have a drenching gun, and maybe I have not drawn it, but I can use this one as an example. When you look here, when you have this one here, this picture here shows what we call a drenching gun. And also, just to sum up, we have what we call the dosing. Dosing is giving out the solid medicine. Now with dosing, we use what we call, we have a bolus gun, or we have what we call the dosing gun. We have a dosing gun or a bolus gun. This one here is what we call the bolus gun. This one is used for a solid medicine, while the drenching gun is used when you are giving out what we call the liquid medicine. Remember, that is all about deworming. Number three, we have what we call spraying. Now with spraying, we use a sprayer. With a sprayer, we spray the chemicals to the animal. We spray to the parts that are affected with external parasite. For example, if there are ears, if there are hides or skin, we spray the chemical by using what we call a sprayer. Number three, before I move forward, we have, under still on spraying, we have to carry out what we call the restraining of the animal. Spraying does not, you cannot carry out spraying without restraining this animal. And we restrain this animal in a structure that is called what we call a crush. This crush, you ensure that the animal enters the crush, then you carry out the spraying of the chemical on that animal. This one prevents the animal to damage the person that is carrying out that activity. Now, we have number four, rotational grazing. Very important and very useful when carrying out this control of parasite. Why? Number one, with this one, it controls both external and internal parasite. And with this one, we ensure that these parasites, they are starved. We starve them at a given period of time. When we starve them, they will lack food, hence they will die. When they die, it means now we can bring back that animal to that area, hence we will have prevented the effects of those parasites to the animal. So that is all about the control measures. You have to understand: number one, dipping, deworming, spraying, and lastly, rotational grazing. Now, after talking about the parasites, general livestock, we can also discuss what we call the human intestinal worms. When you talk about human intestinal worms, these are worms that now affect the human or the human body, the human beings. Now, they are found in the mostly they are found in the alimentary canal of the human body. Now, we discussed the alimentary canal. We talked of the small intestine, the large intestine. We talked about the stomach and the ileum, duodenum, and other parts. Now, what are the example of worms that affect the human body? Number one, we have what we call the hookworm. We have the roundworm. We have the pinworm, the tapeworm. We have the threadworm, and all other examples that affect human bodies. What are the methods that are used now to control these human intestinal worms? Because if we allow them to continue affecting human bodies in that way, you may get that it leads to weakening of many people, and also it can lead to death of the people in the area. Now, the first thing that you have to carry out is that to ensure you have proper sanitation. Proper sanitation means that areas that you are carrying out food activities, either you are cooking, either you are preparing food, you ensure that the areas are good and they are very safe for carrying out that activity. Then number two, you carry out what we call proper washing. This one is mostly insisted on the foods that are eaten raw. For example, if you want to eat a mango, eat them without cooking. So we have to carry out proper washing. You ensure that the fruit is very clean so that you cannot have that being affected by these worms. Number three, you carry out what we call proper cooking. Now, with this proper cooking, you ensure that your food is well cooked. Don't just boil, then you remove that food. You have to ensure that the food is well cooked so that now to kill anything that can cause the presence of this roundworm in your body. Second last is regular deworming. With regular deworming, we said we give out oral medicine. Now you have to carry out oral medication so that now you kill any presence of a worm in the body. You have to kill them before now they can multiply. So this one ensures that now the human body are very safe. Lastly, we carry out what we call proper hygiene, or we maintain the hygiene of the area. If the areas that are used for preparation of food, you ensure that they are very hygienic, so that now you prevent the spread of this multiplication of these worms in the body. Now, after understanding all this on human body and the worms in the human body, you have also to understand it very well and understand the effects that are caused by these worms. For example, this hookworm, when they feed, mainly they feed on the food that is eaten by any human body. You get that somebody will have to eat a lot of food. When somebody is feeding on most of the time, you get that now either he has a problem or he has what we call the worms that are competing with the food that person is eating. So you have to ensure you carry out deworming if there is presence of those worms in the body, and also you carry out these sanitations so that you maintain the safety of the body. Now, generally today, you have to understand all the livestock parasite, that is the external, their effects. You have also to understand the internal parasite, their effects. You have also to understand the effects, general effects of this parasite, and you have to understand the control measures so that you have to ensure that you control your livestock to be safe. And lastly, you have to understand the intestinal or the human intestinal worms. That is all about today's topic. So let's meet during our next lesson, inshallah. Thank you.